Good evening to everyone. My name is Rhonda Wood, and I'm the admissions director here at Hawthorn School. And this evening I will be your moderator. So this evening is set out that I will ask questions to our panelists, and you, the audience, will have the opportunity to ask your questions at the end. And we ask you to ask your questions through the chat function. And if you want to direct your question to a particular panelist, then include that information in the chat. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists. Gwen, can you show your video? So
I usually can, but for some reason it's not working right now. I can't.
Okay, no worries. Okay. Okay, so we have our one family is Liz and Steve Rebello. Maybe you want to wave or something so people can see you. Liz and Steve have been at the Hawthorn since 2002. They have three of their daughters have graduated, and presently they have three daughters still here. Teresa's in grade 10, Monica grade 5, and Katrina in grade 3. Our second family is the Bruno family. I'm hoping they're going to be on soon. They enrolled at Hawthorn on March the 12th, 2020. And before we started the March break. And then because of COVID, we went on lockdown. So their first experience with Hawthorn was all virtual. So they have some very interesting stories, I'm sure. And our alumna is Guinevere Santaguida. Do you want to wave, Gwen? Guinevere, she graduated from Hawthorn in 2018. She's presently at Carleton University in Ottawa, and she's studying journalism. Okay, so I guess I'm going to start with Gwen. Okay, Gwen, what did you appreciate most about the school during your time here? And how was your perspective on that change now that you have some distance from the school? You don't, yep.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, Rhonda. But during my time at the school, it was definitely the community. There were a lot of positive, so many positive things about Hawthorn, but the most positive thing from my perspective is the community and the friendships that I formed there. And I lived away from home. I chose to go to Hawthorn and be away from my family who were in Montreal. So community and relationships were very important to me. And I found that at Hawthorn. I found that the friendships that I had were very meaningful. And I have not found anything like that since leaving Hawthorn. I haven't formed friendships as strong, and I haven't really found a community that feels like family that isn't my family since leaving. And I do think I took it for granted. And yeah, that was, from my experience, the most excellent thing about Hawthorn.
Okay. What, to the best of your knowledge, most differentiates the school from others?
Yeah, I think maybe two things to touch on as an answer to this question, but Hawthorn is a faith-based school, and to me that was incredible because I had the opportunity to grow in my personal faith and grow in my walk with the Lord, which I otherwise probably wouldn't have had. But the other thing that I think most differentiates Hawthorn from other schools is the relationship and the one-on-one attention you get with your teachers. I really think that because the class sizes were small, teachers were able to really zone in on where growth was needed. and they just helped me grow in a way that I don't think I would have had the opportunity to grow otherwise.
Okay, thank you. So the next question for you is, if the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words?
So the 3 words that I would choose would be encouraging, faithful, and ambitious.
Okay. What one thing would you change about the school for the better if you had to choose something?
Yeah, so this question is hard because I looking back on my Hawthorn experience, I really think like I talk about Hawthorn as a positive most of the time. But something very specific, I really missed playing the clarinet. I wish that I had had the opportunity to grow and in playing the clarinet. That's really what I came up with. Yeah.
Okay, and what would families find most surprising about the school?
I think what families would find most surprising about Hawthorn is they talk about small class sizes as being good because, if a student is struggling, teachers can really give their time and, help students grow. But what I found as a Hawthorn student was teachers went the extra mile again and again and again. So I remember I was struggling with some mental health issues my last year of school. And it was really, really it was a real struggle. And my economics teacher literally lent me her lamp, a special lamp that I could use during her classes. And it had a positive impact on my mental health and on my whole life, and I won't forget that. And I think that is something that you can't really advertise for that, but the teachers care so much and they notice things. I didn't really tell this teacher very much, and she just realized, okay, this student needs a little extra something and I want her to have that in my economics class. I want her to I want to let her know that I want her to have the best experience, and I think that is what I think would surprise parents most is just how much the teachers care.
So Marnie, I'm going to have you as the next panelist. Before you came, I introduced you as a parent who enrolled in the school around March the 12th, and March 23rd we were into lockdown.
Exactly.
So I'm going to ask you the questions. Parents are going to ask, they might ask you a question after through the chat room, okay?
Sure.
So why did you choose the school originally, and in which ways is the school what you expected, and in which ways is it not?
So as we were looking for the best environment for Francesca, for our daughter, what attracted us to Hawthorn, and in fact, she named it, because when we decided to leave the public Catholic system, we had said to Francesca, you know what, this is going to be our call. Mom and Dad are making the decision on this one. You can participate in it, but for sure, we want to find an environment where you're going to thrive. And so we had been doing some research. And when we did the broader research before school visits and whatnot, and I remember this because you asked me, were you looking at other schools? And the answer was no, we weren't. And it was because Francesca, and it aligned, we had already aligned on Hawthorn from a character development. So developing the whole child, looking at our girls and supporting their development as people active and engaged in life. And certainly the Catholic inspired component was important to us, but it wasn't the the cincher, like the thing that cinched it was even Francesca's notice when we were doing the online exploration. One of the girls in one of your videos said it felt like a family, and Francesca lit up and she said, Mom, that's the one I want to go to, the one that called itself the family. And so that, and we've, you know, been in the building all of, you know, 4 weeks now since we started in the middle of the pandemic, and that has played out already. So the sense of belonging and an environment that had deliberately the desire to care for these girls, to take an interest in them in a way that you feel safe, where family feels safe. So that that was the draw. We had, my husband and I had already aligned on Hawthorn. That was like the one we were interested in. And so when you said, were you looking elsewhere? I didn't have a plan B. This was plan A and B. And so in what ways was the school what we expected, and how has it not been? So what has been the surprise? So the surprise is how quickly the girls have accepted Francesca. So like that, her sense and her experience, what's coming home to me at the end of the day is somebody who is buoyant, lit up, and already feels a sense of belonging in her classroom. So that's pretty rapid. If you think about being the new girl, if you think of never having been in the building, you know, this kind of awkward online experience, that's been really marvelous. So how quickly that has transpired has been a surprise and a delight, frankly.
That's beautiful. I didn't mention, so Francesca was in grade 5 and now she's in grade 6.
Yes, yeah, grade 6.
So what is the biggest impact the school has had on your child? I think you've already mentioned a couple of things, but is there anything else you want to add?
A loving, safe space to grow. You know, like I say to, we have an only child, so Francesca's our one and only, and that's good and bad, right? That means like you're always being corrected, you're always being, like, it's hard growing up, there's so many lessons to learn. And so for me, the other thing I should have mentioned at the first question is the mentorship program. So me as a mom and my husband with just a one and only at home, having another resource that's not mom and dad is strategically very powerful for us. So that was pretty exciting as well. So that that I've experienced already. You know, the comment, like, what is Francesca saying? And it relates to the impact that she's settled. So her grades were fine in her other school. So the reason for changing wasn't, I mean, academically, yes, the bar is not the same. So that's already a big learning curve. So, you know, and I can say honestly, the honeymoon's over. So we're in week 4. It's hard now. The gap is present. It's not easy doing, you know, year 1 of violin when everybody else is at a certain level, or what's expected and what it takes to get, you know, a level of mark that you might be used to. The standards have shifted. So we're on that train already, okay? But she's not frightened by that. So for both things to be true is powerful. So yes, acknowledging and seeing the gap, already flunked a French test, you know, but been coached by the teacher and another chance to come at it with a different way of studying. So, you know, she's recognizing she's on it. So what I'm saying is that there's bumps and bruises that go along with learning, guaranteed, but that it feels safe to do that. So for her to recognize that there's a stretch, but not be frightened by that, is an exciting place for a parent, for me to watch.
What does your child have to say about the school?
Well, okay, so I wrote this down because
Okay.
she sent this to me, and I actually wanted to capture how she phrased it because it was so beautifully put. We got in the car one day, I just have it in my WhatsApp. We got in the car one day after school, and she said, "Mom," and I'm quoting, "Mom, it's like everyone is the same, but not the same. Like puzzle pieces where everyone is different, but we all go together." And so to me, that, and then the ending sentence was, she said, at her old school, I felt like a puzzle piece, but everybody else was blocks. So she was just recognizing the experience of what it feels like to feel more at home, more in an environment that feels like you. She was recognizing something in herself.
Wow.
Recognizing the gap maybe that we had elsewhere.
Thank you for sharing that. That's pretty personal. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words?
Kind, wise, and patient.
And your last question, how would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community?
So that's always hard to distill it down to just a few, isn't it? So belonging, so the value, the sense of community, of needing one another, and being in something together. So we're on our education and we're educating our children, yes, of course, but there's a sense of community there, nurturing, and excelling. So there still is, like I said, there still is a healthy, productive tension, right? There has to be some stretch. And so that's exciting for me to see. And I've met a few parents, only a few, because of the strangeness of coming in during the pandemic lockdown. And now we're on such a kind of strict rigor when we drop off and pick up. But the connection I've made with a wonderful family, I recognize something, that we're parents who are prepared to have other people contribute to our children. So that means we're not the only expert in the room, like as the mom or the dad who knows our child. Like, so there's an allowing, there's a vulnerability there, there's a giving up, there's a sharing. And that's, I think, going to be remarkable because there's other wonderful people to learn from. And I mean more than just academically. I don't think as a parent I ever competed to try to be the teacher. And certainly during lockdown, it was clear I am not an elementary school teacher. So that's not the point of contention, but more just that there's other people who shape your children. And so we care about the type of people who shape our children. That's why we're at Hawthorn.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so our last family is Liz and Steve Rebello. And as I mentioned, Liz and Steve have been involved in school since 2002. What's that? You have your mute off, Steve.
Dawnland School, so.
Yes. Yeah, well, I won't embarrass you and tell you how, Steve, how long I've known Steve and Liz, but they were just kids when I met them. Anyways, I'm going to ask you both the same questions. Okay, so why did you choose the school originally? And in which ways is the school what you expected? And in which ways is it not?
Okay, so we chose the school because, Steve's parents were one of the founding parents. And I knew the school right from when it began. I was a teenager, but not young enough to be in the school. And so I did a lot of work to help around the school. And then I taught as I was a student. So I knew the curriculum for the younger grades, and I really liked it. And so it just seemed the right fit for us in every aspect, really. Also, I think in the beginning, because it was founded by families, this idea of family was a big part of the school. And so we just naturally, that was the place for us to be.
Yeah, I think also I've had sisters that graduated from the school. So most, if not all, of my sisters graduated. So I have 6 sisters. And yeah, so watching them go through the programs and mature and, you know, there's nothing like, as a parent, recognizing that when your sisters were teenagers, they hated the school, which as a parent, upon reflecting on that, makes you realize there's probably some good at the heart of that, because it's like Marnie was saying, you know, parents get to make the decision a lot where the kids go to school, because often there's other competing factors that the kids have in their heads. So anyways, we had a lot of experience with interactions with the school and people at the school. And I think, you know, the beautiful thing is that despite, you know, people having been at the school less time or more time, everybody has sort of captured that and encapsulated that idea of the warmth and the care and the familial atmosphere that, even despite being in the odd times we're in, obviously gets transmitted in spades. So
I was just going to add also, I guess, for me, I was around Steve's family when his sisters were students at Hawthorn. And so they shared a lot with me. And then when I became a parent, and his youngest sister was 5 years old in JK, you know, the older ones were like in high school. And anyways, I think I asked them a lot, like, what was your experience, or like as a student, you know, from your perspective. And as they got older, they all said that no matter what the things that, you know, they may not have liked or whatever, they all feel like had they not been at Hawthorn, they wouldn't be who they are today. So it really shaped who they were, and that had a big impact on our decision.
Okay, wow. What is the biggest impact the school has had on your children?
Okay, so I guess for the ones graduating, again, Hawthorn has really given them the ability to think for themselves, and you know, not just, you know, be a follower in a sense, and shaped who they are in character. Like Marnie was saying, one of the big features of Hawthorn is the character formation that they get. And you know, you see how, you know, from, you know, grade 8, the growth to grade 10 versus the growth to grade 12. And I think, you know, we had the experience of one of our daughters giving, it was the first year it was introduced, and she had to give a kind of, I guess, kind of like a thesis, and just really being able to listen to that of all the girls in her class and see how they had really, you know, become really young women that could change the world. It really spoke a lot to that.
yeah, I think also the impact on the younger ones has been that, you know, again, as Marnie mentioned, the idea that there's another group of people that are in your corner. We've had the experience of homeschooling our kids, sending them to the public school system, sending them to private schools, other private schools as well, because our boys go to another private school. And so the experience that we've had at Hawthorn with, you know, all the staff, the teachers, the mentoring, and the administration has always been one of being very much on the same page, and knowing that, you know, I think, again, Marty put it beautifully, like, we're very careful as parents with whom we want our children to spend time with and be formed by. And that's, you know, both exciting, but also a little bit scary. But I don't ever remember, you know, and our kids never, ever have feedback that would suggest anything but everybody pulling in the same direction, wanting to pull in the same direction. And I think that's something that you can't ever underestimate, the impact that it has on the kids when there's that consistency, because it's, we notice it maybe as parents when it's not there, right? And sometimes Hawthorn, the experience at Hawthorn can be a little bit quieter in the sense that we sometimes take it for granted that pulling in the same direction is there. But we can't ever underestimate the power that it has on the kids and in solidifying their knowledge about what the truth is, for instance, or how to be, all these values that we talk about, how to be loyal or how to be a good friend and things like this, right? These are very difficult to kind of teach in a class, but with that consistency and that character development and that focus, it really comes out in the end, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so well, I don't know if you want to have anything to add, but the next question is, what does your child have to say about the school? So, I mean, you've mentioned that.
Again,
but yeah.
Similar, I mean, the older kids recognizing, because they were away, some of them were away from Hawthorn and came back, and really realizing, it was a good thing that they came back. At the time, Rhonda can tell you that they didn't want to be back because they were like, grade 11 or 12. And, but really after everything, admitting, to hear them admit that was, and again, it was very, for us as parents, it was, we, like you're saying, Marnie, like we're making the decision. So you may not like it. And it was difficult for us to have to bear with grumpy kids or whatever, but in the end, it turned out, and they're still very fond of the school. I mean, and the friends that they've made. I think that's one of the biggest things that they would say is the friends that they've made are their lifelong friends. So even in university, they're still meeting up and they're still in touch, and it's great that they support each other. I think Gwen mentioned the same thing, and Gwen actually happened to be in a year with one of my daughters. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything, Steve?
No, I think that's.
So if the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words?
That's really difficult.
We definitely would say familial.
Yeah.
I think the other word that I would use is truthful, that they're not going to shy away from telling you the truth, whether it's difficult. And sometimes, let's face it, that's the most difficult time to tell somebody the truth, is when it's not that easy.
And kind, I think kindness, the thing of really charity, right? So, because you can't get anywhere without kindness. And, and like you said, Marnie, patience, that's why I'm saying it's difficult, because it's kind of all encompassing. So, yeah.
Okay, the last question. How would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community?
So one of the things that I would say is that, so for instance, we live in Mississauga. So for those of you that are in the big Toronto, Mississauga is actually way out to the west end of the city. And so I work maybe 10 minutes from home, but I commute an hour and a half to drive my girls to school in the morning. And then my wife generously picks them up in the afternoon. But why do I mention that in terms of talking about other parents' values and whatnot? Well, any parent there that we've ever approached to help out with anything, whether it be driving, and there's other families that come from further, believe it or not, and helping out with whatever it might be. I think during the pandemic life that we're all living, it maybe shines out even more. So with the extra effort that you see from the teachers and the staff and all the extra work that goes in the background that nobody ever sees to keep the kids, safe and still focused on what's important, without having to worry too much about all the peripheral things that us adults worry about. I think those things speak a lot to the value that they espouse at the school and that the other families have. And I think, again, you know, Marnie said it beautifully in that, you know, we're all there caring about the kids in a way that is, you know, pointed at helping them have the best experience and best chance at success possible, right? So whether that be for one child academically, for another, like Gwen had mentioned, the teacher that lent her the lamp or whatever else, I think if you went to the families, you'd hear the same consistent stories over and over again, the stories about the lamp, or the stories about that time I couldn't pick up my daughter, but so-and-so brought them home for us. And again, you know, not in a scary kind of odd way, but in, you know, this consistent help and offering up of people's time and effort, right?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is, in terms of the teachers, is really knowing, like the administration, really knowing the children for who they are, right? And that really goes a long way to be able to work with them. And again, like you're saying, to have that other person, that it's not you telling them, but they're hearing it from somebody else, right? So I think the biggest thing is, again, because you know, it's like a family, and families, you know, you try and care for the people that are in your family. So in this sense, I think everybody pulls together to really, as a whole, take care of your child, which I don't think you can find anywhere else. Like it's a pretty unique thing to Hawthorn.
One of the other things, as an anecdote, you know, last year, you know, just pre-COVID, the girls won the volleyball tournament. You know, in the I guess the CISA for that group or whatever. And you know, I thought to myself about the group of girls that was on that team, and you know, the coaches and what efforts went into it, and considering, again, you know, size of the school and all the different things that we talk about maybe being not there in terms of some of the bigger schools or some of the more accomplished historical schools and whatnot, yet the grit that that team showed, and you see it consistently over and over again, the resilience that the girls show, you know, showing up, taking the efforts, and all those things speak volumes to the different values that are espoused by the girls themselves, who take on that idea from the school and the people they see it as examples around the school,
and their parents.
and their parents as well, right? So I see Guinevere nodding.
Okay, so we can open the floor, as I say, to questions. And if you would pose your questions in the chat. Oh, there's Mary Pat. Okay. Okay, so the question is, okay, let me just see. So the question is, thank you for sharing your perspective with us. So I would think this question is for Liz and Steve. You have boys. Why did you not pick Hawthorn and not a co-ed school for your children?
That's a good question. I think for me, when I was a teenager, I would have said, no way, no girls' school for me. But again, being a parent, I see that and I'm a teacher also. So I see, like in the education system, that the regular schools really favor girls and not so much boys. And when our kids first started going to the private school, they started at Northmount, which is an all-boys school. And you could see the difference it made in it really tailored towards boys' needs. So for example, you know, I really see the value in single-sex education For the girls also, just, you know, not being able to have so many distractions and to really develop who they are. That was like a really important component, which I found in a co-ed school. And we did have our kids in the regular co-ed school, and, you know, it was not good. So that's when we quickly put them back into Hawthorn. Yeah.
And for many reasons.
Did you want to elaborate, Steve, or?
Nope, I agree.
No. Okay, we have a question for Gwen. In high school, were there courses that Hawthorn did not offer that you were interested in taking? And how did you manage that in preparation for university applications?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, apologies for just disappearing there, technology. No, so that's a great question. So, specifically for my year, I was kind of the liberal arts gal. So, in my year, there were mostly girls interested in science, biology, maths. And the school was aware of that and did try very hard to accommodate for them. So I was a bit worried, honestly, because while the school does specialize in liberal arts, my grade were, you know, there's 2 engineering students now, and you know, like a kin and just so, like, there was one girl was in fashion, so that's a bit different, but you know, there was just a lot of STEM, heavy STEM, and Hawthorn does that very well. But I was interested in politics, I was interested in economics, I was interested in those courses, and there was no enrollment, like none. And Hawthorn decided, you know, we're going to give those classes anyways, and it was me and grade 11 students, and the teachers of those classes, what she did was she would give, you know, the class would be a split class, but she put so much effort into developing a curriculum that was grade 12 specific. So while we were in the same class, we were working together, we were collaborating, but I was doing different work, I was giving different assignments, and I didn't feel like, oh, I'm the grade 12 student who was just being forgotten, not at all. So there was a lot, I didn't feel at any point that just because my interests were different than the other girls, and there weren't so many people enrolling in the same classes as me, that I wouldn't get the opportunity to take those classes. I still was. Now, I do think that, all that to say, at Hawthorn, there are fewer classes offered. Like, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to take a law class. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to take certain classes, and that's just true. But I'm in my second year of university. I took a gap year to work on Parliament Hill, but now that I'm in my second year of university, I feel so comfortable, so comfortable. I feel like I'm leaps and bounds ahead of some of my classmates, which I owe completely to Hawthorn. And while I might not have had the opportunity to take a sociology course in grade 12, I did really well in sociology because they gave me so many excellent research tools and study tools, and they just set me up for success. So just because I couldn't take a grade 12 sociology credit at Hawthorn, it by no means meant that when I got to university in my first year sociology class, I felt at a disadvantage. Quite the opposite. I was overly prepared. And I say this, I mean, some of my STEM friends had a different experience because it's hard, like engineering at university is challenging. But as a liberal arts student, my grade 12 year at Hawthorn was harder than my first year of university. So, yeah.
Thank you, Gwen. I just would like to add that too. So at Hawthorn, in the upper school, we follow the ministry, the curriculum, and all our girls go to the university of their first choice. Also, if there is a subject that a student wants to take, and there's other girls involved, there's more girls also wanting to take the same course, Hawthorn will accommodate that. But in Gwen's case, there was the only one, so they had to accommodate it in a different way. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. Any last comments the panelists would like to make?
The one thing that sparked for me when the Rebellos were speaking was when I was going through when we were going through the admissions process, I felt like we were coming to Hawthorn, like the Brunos, not just, send your child in, drop them off, pick up said child at the end of the day. But and that was remarkable, actually. And so that has already factored in terms of just how people are looking out for, Francesca, that they know, who I am, or, Mr. Bruno, like, in a larger public school of 1,000 kids, you really were anonymous, and trying to get through when you needed to get through was really challenging. So that's, to me, a special component of this, and it speaks to how the education and the formation process is. You were very clear in the application process that the first line of education is happening at home, and we count on that, parents. So there's there's a confraternité, there's a community there that sort of set out at the beginning, and that was really important and special to us.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if no one is, there's no more questions. For parents that are joining us this evening, if you would like to speak to me, not in person, we'd have to do it virtually, but I'm happy to set up a Google Meet and answer any other questions that you might think of. Sometimes it's hard after hearing these wonderful parents and alumni saying a lot of information to digest. So you might have some questions tomorrow or next week, but I'd be very happy to accommodate an appointment online. Thank you. Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night. Ciao.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.